YouTube, there you go. YouTube is rolling. Shalom, shalom, grand rising. All right, I am Jetty, Empress Jetty the Rabble Rouser, coming at you from Black Enlightenment, where we are broadcasting consciousness. This morning, guys, I'm going to do something a little bit different, but let's just give some people some time to get in the room. I'm going to do my Facebook invites here. Shalom and grand rising to all. I've got some stuff, some errands to run this morning, so this live will actually be recording for class. I'm in this homeschooling group, and pardon me, and I'm teaching a class on community building, and I've got to go out and run these errands. I got to get two things fixed today. I got to get my car fixed, and I got to get my cat fixed. So I'll be running this morning. I got to drop the cat off. Hallelujah. I got to drop the cat off between 9 and 10. And it's about 30 minutes away. So I've got quite a bit to do this morning to get out the door. But of course, I've got time for you guys. I'm just going to kill two birds with one stone. And my boy Jay Morrison was like, try that. You can kill four birds with one stone, which perhaps I am, because I've been saying that I need to develop courses for these online universities that people are developing courses in. And so perhaps this will be the first video course. So, I mean, not that the others haven't been a course, but this is a little bit more structured, just a little bit. So I'm just going to get these here invites done, give people the time to get their notifications. Hi, community building. When I say community, I wonder what some of the things are that come to mind. When I say community, what I want you to do, if you're in the class, and if you're not in the class, you can just think about it. But if you're taking this class, what I want you to do is write down your definition of community. What does community mean to you? Write down your own definition of community. What comes to mind when I say community? You're going to write that down. I'm going to give you a moment to write down what community means to you. Now, if you're in the class, you'll be watching this later and not live. And what you can do is these moments when I give you an instruction to write something down or to discuss or something like that, you want to pause the video, okay? I'm going to pause the video, but right now you probably have a little bit of time to write down what community means to you as I continue with these invites. Please forgive me if that's irritating to you, that I am a little scattered in my focus, but this is just how it goes. So what does community mean to you? When you hear the word community, what comes to mind, right? So you can pause the video if you'd like and think about that and write that down. All right. Okay, and now we're back, assuming you paused it, or perhaps you didn't. Now, what's interesting is a lot of times when we think of community, we think of groups, but we don't really think of them. Maybe we think of our neighborhood where we live, or maybe we think of like the people that we work with at jobs, that's a community. Or perhaps we think of the people that we're in school with, that's a community. But many of those are not really communities, because communities, well, let's just look at the word. And I'm not going to go into Webster and the Latin and this and that. Let's just look at what we know about the word community. We know it's got one word in it that we're all super familiar with, unity, right? So just if we look at unity alone, we can ask ourselves, do these groups that we think of when we think of community, are they unified, right? And if they're unified, what unifies them, right? So perhaps in identification, they're unified, like we're all in the same class. And so that gives us unity in a sense, right? But are we really in unity just because we're all in the same class? Does proximity give us unity? Proximity, if you don't know that word, means how close something is to something else or someone. So, does the fact that you're close to someone mean that you have unity with them? I'm not so sure. And what about the other part of the word community? The other part of the word community is calm. Now, let's think about what we know about the word calm. We're not going to the dictionary and all of that. Let's just what we know about calm. We know calm is in words like common, right? We know compost, right? Calm. Uh, and so if we think about it, calm gives us the sense of togetherness, right? Togetherness. So if we look at a very layman's version of the word community, it means together as one, right? Together as one. So are you together as one? Shalom, Kareem, brother. Shalom and salute. So today, I don't know at what point you came in, but this is a little different today. What I'm actually doing is I'm leaving some breadcrumbs. I've got to go out and get my car and my cat fixed. And I've got this class that I need to offer to my homeschooling group. And so I'm doing it here live so that they can access it later here online when they need it. And it's not going to hurt us. This is something that I've been wanting to develop this course anyway. And so that's what we're doing. So community, if we look at a simple layman's understanding, right, of the breakdown of those parts of that word, you have together and you have oneness. So a lot of times if we think of community, we are misrepresenting to ourselves what community really means. Because if you think your family is a community, but people are always undermining one another, they're not really a community. If you think about your neighborhood as a community, but people steal from one another and people bully one another, and maybe there's a poor family there that never has enough, and a couple well-off families that always have plenty, they're not really operating as one together. They're operating separately. Now, just because the individuals of a community have distinct roles and operate distinct and apart from one another in function, what makes something or someone's a community is the oneness of purpose. So if you open up a watch, for instance, you will see so many little parts. But all of those strange little parts, you've got springs and you've got, what are those things called? Cogs, and you've got all kinds of little things inside that watch. Now they're all doing kind of their own thing, but their own thing is interlocked in such a way that when they all do their own thing properly, it makes your watch run accurately. So a community is not just people that are in close proximity to one another. And remember, proximity means how close things are to one another or how far apart, right? There's close proximity and then there's broader, far proximity, right? So the wheels of and the cogs and all of the parts inside of a watch are in very close proximity. They so much so that they interlock, right? There's the unity part. They're actually one. So that if you look inside the watch, you will see many, many parts. And they're all moving at different times and going in different directions. However, it's done in such a way that it creates one movement of the watch. It creates, well, actually two movements, right? Which are one, because you've got the, or even three if you've got a second hand on it, right? So you've got all of these things working together inside the watch to make one hand move quickly around so that it counts the seconds. Another hand moves slightly slower, or 60 times slower, which is not really slightly. It moves 60 times slower to make the minute hand. And yet another hand that moves 60 times slower than that, which is the hour hand, right? And so it is only because of the functionality of the community of parts that your watch is accurate, right? And so if we think of community like the insides of a watch, what can we learn about what community is and what community is not? Well, one thing we know is community is not a bunch of the same parts. Everyone in a community is not going to look the same, think the same, act the same, dress the same, eat the same foods, right? They're going to have a lot of things in common, like probably most of the parts inside of the watch are going to be made out of the same materials, right? They're going to have some things in common, but the parts as individuals are distinct, right? They're very distinct. What else we know, is that each one maintains its individual purpose, right? It stays in its own lane. Each part performs their role and their task to the best of their ability and in sync with the others, so that when the others perform their part and their task, it all works together and you get a well-functioning watch. So if your watch stops working, and it's not because the batteries run out, which the battery is a part of it too, but let's say it's a wind-up one, right? And you wind it and it still doesn't work. And you take it to the watchmaker and he's going to open it up. And chances are there's going to be a part, one little part that maybe has some issue. Maybe a little spring broke, or maybe a cog on a wheel. Maybe the timing got weird and like a little cog broke, or maybe you got some rust in there and maybe the rust got to a few different parts, right? But what that tells us is that in a true community, all it takes is one dysfunctional part to halt the movement of the community. Now, sometimes you can repair the part, and sometimes you have to remove that part and put another part in its place. If that part is so dysfunctional or so broken that it cannot be repaired, you have to remove it from the equation and put something back in its place that can perform the same role, that can fit in the same space and perform the same role as the other part. Now, a lot of times when you get a watch repaired, maybe the parts in your watch originally were all, I don't know, chrome. But now maybe you can't find the chrome parts anymore. Maybe now you've got to go with stainless steel. It doesn't so much matter when you're replacing parts in the community. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't, but we'll get into that. But let's just say it doesn't entirely matter that the part that you replace it with is exactly identical to the other part. It just has to be identical enough to fit in the space so that it can continue to perform the same role. It's got to have the same synchronicity, which means they can go together timing wise, right? It's got to be the same, width. It can't be too chunky because then it's going to interrupt the parts that are on top. Because inside of a watch, guys, parts are layered on top of each other. There's all kind of, it's really a beautiful thing if you've ever looked inside of a watch, right? And we're not talking about a computerized watch. We're talking about one with hands, right? So replacing parts in a community does pose some challenges, right? If you've got a dysfunctional part of the community and it cannot be repaired, it cannot be restored, and you have to replace it. That does pose some challenges. But so does the repairing part, also poses some challenges, right? If you want to repair a part, then that's a lot of work a lot of times. A lot of times, repairing a part is a lot more work than just replacing it. But in a community of people, if it is possible to repair the part, that's going to be your best case scenario, because you don't want to lose parts. And even with the watch, that's going to be your best case scenario, because you're going to maintain the integrity of the original intention of that watch. And you're going to maintain, like when, let's say you sell it at an auction, that it has all of its original parts, even if they've been repaired, is going to make it a more valuable watch than if it's got other parts, even though it's still, they've been replaced, the watch still works. It's going to lose its value a little bit, and sometimes a lot, depending on what those parts are that you've had to replace, especially if you're unable to get the exact same part, right? So, and we know with people, you're never going to get the exact same part when you replace a person with another person, right? So how do we know in a community if we have to replace people, if we have to get rid of them, right? And bring someone else in their place? Well, one thing that is critical is you have to assess their impact. Does their brokenness completely stop the movement of the group, right? Do they keep breaking so that you've got to fix the watch every week, right? Do they habitually impede the progress of the group? Now, each group is going to have to decide for themselves what too much is, right? How many times we can allow this person's dysfunction. And if you don't know that word, remember, guys, I know you guys that are watching live know these words, but this is a class for later for various ages. So dysfunction, we know function means to work, right? Function means it works somehow. Dysfunction means it's working improperly or not working, right? Or dysfunction would be working improperly. Non-functioning would be not working. So if this part of the community is so dysfunctional, working so improperly, that it constantly causes the community to stop working properly, then you might have a situation where you might need to completely replace that. Because if all you ever do is spend all of your time in the group trying to fix this person, right? Maybe they always lie, and they're always starting trouble and causing confusion. And so you can either spend all of the community's time dissecting this person's lies, or you can remove them from the community. And whatever role they were playing in that community, you are going to find someone who can do that same job, who doesn't lie, right? But what you got to be careful of is you don't want to, let's say, replace a person who can do the job. Let's say they're the cook. They do the job of the cook, but they lie all the time. So whenever you go and eat from them, they're spreading untrue rumors about people. So then you don't want to remove that person and then bring someone in who has a worse habit, right? Maybe this person steals. So you don't want to replace a liar with a thief. You want to make sure that you do what's called vetting. Now, this vetting process is going to be really important when you're forming the community in the first place. But to be honest, right now, in this day and age, given the times, how can I explain? Because things are so urgent, a lot of times communities are made just because of circumstances. And then you build community with who comes together and find out who fits what roles. And a lot of times there's just not time for that vetting process that would reveal people's bad habits. And also another thing to consider is it's easy to mask bad habits when you are still in superficial relationships with people, meaning you have not had a lot of long time and a lot of really important experiences with them, right? your relationship with them is based on everyday, very casual interactions. You say hi, you say bye, maybe you sit down and have lunch together and chat for 30 minutes, but you haven't been through anything together, right? You haven't tested the relationship. So the problem with vetting in communities is that it's within the context of the community a lot of times that you even discover what these things are. Yes, Kareem, that's the honeymoon phase, right? We call that the honeymoon phase. When people are putting on their best performance, they want people to like them, they want to be accepted. And so they're not showing you their flaws, they're not showing you their bad habits and things like that, right? And so vetting can be very difficult, right? But one thing that you can do is check people's references, right? And for those of you that follow me, you know, I often say, check my work. Check my work. When I say something, when I put something out there, I often say, check my work, meaning you can ask people who have seen me in this situation, who've been with me when I've been in this situation, you can ask them how I handled it. And you will find that how I handled it then is exactly what I'm telling you now. You can ask them what my results were. My results that I got then, or what I'm telling you will be your results if you apply these things now, right? And so that is called doing your due diligence. So what you're going to do is when you're making a watch, you're going to do your due diligence in making sure that all of the parts are certified to be used in that watch, for instance, right? You're going to make sure that things are going to line up before you throw them, into this community that's expected to work, right? And so for vetting, you want to research these people, right? Research. So we've got to keep in mind, though, if you're building righteous communities, that's communities of people who have high moral standards that they hold for themselves. They don't not steal because it's illegal. They don't steal because it impacts other people in a negative way and it causes them to have to be dishonest, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's legal or not. If they said today, everybody can steal, you won't go to jail, certain people are still not going to steal, right? Okay, so what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you are vetting, remember, vetting is the process by which we're going to figure out if this person or this part to the community is going to fit, right? And so in your vetting process, you want to be really careful because a lot of people nowadays, most people nowadays, are not righteous people. And so if you're asking about someone, you need to pay very close attention to the character of the person that you're asking. Because this person might just see that the person you're asking about is going to get a blessing if they join this group of movers and shakers and doers. And so they might say mean things about them. They might tell stories about them where they are putting a spin on it, if you know what that means, right? A spin on it means I tell the story, but I tell it in a way that I want you to get from the story what I want you to get from the story, not just what the story itself contains, right? A spin is like an extra little seasoning on there, extra little poison, lace of poison, a little sprinkle of poison into the story. So when you're doing your vetting, you don't want to go to all of the people that hate that person and ask them. You want to ask some people that don't like them, why do you not like them? But you also want to ask some of the people that do like them, why do you like them? You want to ask about different, you want to ask from different groups of people that know them in different capacities, right? And what that means is people who have seen them in different roles. Like you might ask the children what kind of a mother. You might ask their employer what kind of an employee. You might ask their friends what kind of a friend. And the more diverse or different those groups are that you go to and ask about this person, that is going to give you a more solid interpretation, or not interpretation, but presentation of the person. It's going to give you a more solid idea of who this person is, right? So the vetting process is mostly going to be done not with the person, because if chances are, like Brother Kareem said, chances are the person is in their honeymoon phase. They are showing you their very, very best self, and they don't want you to know their bad habits, right? But you can ask around to different groups of people that they've been a part of and find out what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are based on what those groups of people say. It's very important in vetting for your community to ask from two groups of people, people that are their cheerleaders and people that are their haters. You've got to ask both groups if you want to get a really clear understanding of who this person is. And you're going to have to remember that their cheerleaders are telling you all the best stuff because they love this person and they want them to have this opportunity. So maybe they're leaving out some bad stuff. And their haters are telling you all the worst stuff because they don't want this person to have this opportunity. So they're probably making the bad stuff bigger and probably adding things to it and things like that. But if you look at both of those groups, right, and both of those groups in different arenas, school, work, on the playground, who are they at home, you're going to get a pretty solid view of the person, right? So once you have discerned, or another word for that is to have figured it out, right? Discernment just means that you can figure things out with ease, right? A lot of people use the word discernment in terms of spiritual things, but we discern every day, right? Discern means to just make a proper evaluation, right? So Sister Phoenix is saying you also have to vet what the people you ask are saying about the person. They can tell you a person is good, but they're not. Yeah, we address that, Sister Phoenix, right? That's why you're going to make sure that you ask from different groups of people. You're going to ask from different groups of people who have seen this person in different scenarios. And you're also going to ask from two groups of people. You're going to, well, it would do you good to ask from three. You want to ask from the people that don't like this person, why they don't. You want to ask from people that do like this person, why they do. And then you could ask from people that don't care either way. But typically people that don't care either way haven't observed very much, right? Only people that care a lot are going to pay close enough attention to give you really good information. I mean, they can say, well, I did notice that they're always on time. I mean, I don't really know her, but she is always on time. That's a person that doesn't really care a lot, but that is useful information. So I'm not saying that you don't want to ask people that don't care, but if they don't care, they're not invested, right? You want to ask people who are invested one way or another in that person. And your haters and your cheerleaders are both those groups. And for those of you who are watching in my class and you don't know what I mean when I say people are invested in someone, what that means is they care a lot about what happens to that person, whether they care and want something bad to happen or whether they care and want something good to happen. It matters to them that something happens, right? It matters to them what the outcome is, right? And so we're at 28 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my class some homework, okay? I want you, before we meet next week, I want you to think about who are the people that are really a part of your community. Who are the people whose lives, everyday lives, make it easy for you to live your life? Whose lives are the pieces in the clock that's your life, right? So if your day, your life is a watch, what are the parts inside of that make it go, right? Well, you're going to, of course, have folks like whoever feeds you, right? If you're a kid and you don't cook your own food, somebody makes you dinner, right? And then maybe somebody else buys the dinner and somebody else cooks it, right? Or maybe, whatever those things are that are important to you in your life every day, I want you to think about who makes sure those things happen for you, right? And then I want you to also make a note of who are the people in your life that you are important to in that way. Not important to just because you love them, but important to in terms of what you do in your day is going to matter in their day. Like if you wake up grumpy and you're really slow and you don't get yourself dressed on time, and you not only do you make yourself late for school, but maybe you make mom or dad or your roommate or whoever, maybe you now make them late for work because now they have to drop you off like they usually do, but now you made them late, right? Or maybe if you, it's maybe if you don't help your little sister get dressed, right? Then your little sister is not going to be ready to go when mom says to go. So you're an important part of your little sister's day because you get up every morning and you help her get dressed. So if you don't feel good, if you're sick and you don't get up, that's going to impact your sister's day because now she's got to get dressed on her own, right? So I want you to think about those things. Hallelujah. I want you to think about those things. And as you think about them throughout the week, I want you to jot down, and that means to write down, who the people are that are in your community. Who are the parts that make your life work, and who are the people who you are a part that makes their life work. That's your homework. And we will hopefully next week, we'll do a Zoom and we can all get in class together and talk about some of our answers. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of the answers are going to have a lot of the same folks on those lists, but I'll be interested to see how your lists differ. And with that, guys, I know that was different from what we typically do here at Black Enlightenment in the mornings. I mean, not so different, but just a little, well, it is what it is. I'm going to get off of here. We're at 32 minutes. If you haven't already, please go to the YouTube channel, Black Enlightenment. Check out, first of all, like and subscribe the channel, but check out the playlist entitled The Culture and give me some feedback on those songs, guys. They're a technical mess, but they are cool songs. I think you'll like them. And so shoot me some feedback. And with that, guys, we're just over half an hour. I did want to stay under in a half an hour because, like I said, I got to go get the car and the cat fixed. So I got to get out the door. Thank you for watching. And to my class, I'm really sorry that we didn't get to go live for our first class and have a Zoom meeting. But I'm your Auntie Jetty. You don't have to call me Empress Jetty or Miss Jetty or anything like that. Auntie Jetty will do just fine. But for the rest of you, it's your girl Jetty, Empress Jetty, the Rabble Rouser, coming at you from Black Enlightenment, where we are broadcasting consciousness. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out. Shalom.